Veena Singh ma'am works in the UN, but I must clarify that she is not here in her professional capacity today, but she is here in her personal capacity, and her intention has always been to keep a diverse profile, and there are a lot of things which actually define her, as you will learn during the course of her talk. And her profession is a small part of the entire gamut of things. She is enthusiastic about Kathak, yoga, foreign language Spanish, and relishes the time that she spends with her passions. Her forte is social and behavioral change, SBC, which has gained tremendous traction in recent years, and she is using that for acceptance of developmental schemes, which has been very successful in the recent past. She is a well-rounded personality, having 13 years of experience in the communications domain, with the program focus in developing countries like India and Gambia. West Africa. She has worked in various states of India such as UP, Bihar, Assam, northeastern states before joining UNICEF, West Bengal. And so she is going to speak from her point of view as her trysts with mental health. And of course, based on her talk, then we will have the professional, Dr. Predna Kukriti, who is Associate Professor of Psychiatry at the prestigious LHMC Medical College in Delhi, and she is also the in charge of the Women Mental Health Clinic. So I will just with these words invite you, ma'am, to take over the virtual dials. Veena Singh, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure and privilege to be part of the Proud Depressives movement and to have received this opportunity to share my story with the hope that it might inspire someone out there to prioritize their mind and thoughts without the fear of being judged, same as one does for one's physical health. It is an endeavor to reiterate the fact that mental health is health. My heartiest gratitude to the Proud Depressives team, which includes myself. So here goes my story. Looking at me, all of you must have already made an image of me, but trust me, my petite frame often betrays the firmness of my soul and goes to justify the phrase, looks are deceptive. This has often made things tough for me because no one perceives me to be the hard nut I am and presumes that convincing me is a cakewalk. It takes me an extra argument or two to establish my firmness as against someone who appears to be tough on the outside. And let me just demonstrate how it manifests. So, for example, colleagues approach me to get their way out, but since the perception does not meet reality, they find it hard to accept my firmness, and many times it goes against me. And the shopkeeper thinks that it's easy to lure me into buying something that I don't need, and which he tries to convince me by counting my inadequacies. But when I don't fall for that, what happens? He changes his mind to offer me that 5% discount that he had earlier confirmed. My loss, but again, that's me. And now come to think of this, my family was heavily taken aback when I announced that I wanted to marry an army officer. Obviously, they had expected me to tie the knot with the one they choose for me. Nonetheless, I, as usual, persisted and married the one from the tribe which has the onus of familiarizing us with the names of every nook and cranny of the country, such as Uri, Palanwala, Suratgarh, Alo, and whatnot. And these are some of the locations where my husband was posted, so I'm familiar with them. Of course, in addition to the responsibility of guarding the country. It was approximately 1.5 years into our marriage, out of which we would have barely stayed together for 5 months in paths and fragments. In May 2015, one fine morning, I discovered that I'm pregnant. Unlike how they show it in the movies, my reaction was that of confusion. I also started analyzing the arrangements because I wanted to be with my husband when I carry our child and spend each moment of that period with him. But on the contrary, he was posted in Uri in Kashmir at that time, and I was working in Assam where I worked, of course, for UNICEF. And not that I could not have decided to quit and be with him, but in army there is a concept of non-family duty station, and it explains why I couldn't have gone to live with him. So it was a mixed feeling of responsibility, helplessness, and the world not being fair to me. Of course, anger. My husband and I used to talk for hours on the phone that what should be our next course of action that now that I'm pregnant. And he used to tell me that eventually it's my happiness that matters at any cost. If I decide to defer and plan parenthood when we are together during his next family posting, he would support that. And I have tremendous respect for him for saying that at that point of time. But as destiny would have had it, it was 31st July 2015, and this is for your visualization what I'm going to narrate now. From Hotel Tivoli Garden in Chhatarpur in New Delhi, I was being rushed to the emergency ward of Fortis Hospital. I had gone to Delhi for an official training back then for my organization, and it turned out to be a very peculiar pregnancy that I had, which I had never imagined, never heard of it before I had it myself. Apparently, as doctors told us, I had conceived twins. One fetus was in my uterus and the other was in my fallopian tube. The reason why I was being rushed to the emergency ward of the hospital is because the fetus in the fallopian tube had outgrown the tube size and it had burst. I was living with a ruptured fallopian tube for almost 30 hours when it was finally diagnosed on being taken to the hospital. And of course, not to forget, for once the doctors at Fortis did doubt looking at me back then that it was a case of irresponsible teenage pregnancy out of a love affair. Not for nothing, I said in the beginning that looks are deceptive. So what seemed to be food poisoning, as I was puking and I had severe abdomen pain since the previous day, turned out to be the biggest fear looking me straight in my face. That was a risky and complicated emergency operation, which was what the doctors recommended to save my life. However, God had been kind, and even at 4 level of hemoglobin due to internal bleeding because of the ruptured tube, the doctors took the chance to operate me. That too without having anyone close in my family physically present there to give consent, which is a mandatory protocol for such a risky procedure. I remember my husband talking to the doctor on the speaker phone, which I was hearing because I was just next to the doctor. And he said, and I quote, "Please take a call. You have my consent, although I can't be there physically. And 3 p.m. onwards, I'm going on a mission and won't have the phone network to be contacted." And as I said, he was posted in Uri back then. On 1st of August 2015, perhaps at 2 a.m. in the morning, I remember waking up in the hospital's observation room, just outside the operation theater, with very excruciating pain in my abdomen, with the feeling of relief that the operation is over, and I didn't feel the doctors cutting me. So the worst is over. And of course, you can imagine that feeling. I mean, it was like finding the silver lining amidst all the troubles that I had in that couple of hours of that day. And thereafter, all painful things followed, like both my hands pricked with intravenous blood and saline drips and all that, a lot of injections and whatnot. And by 12 noon, my husband arrived by the first flight he got from Srinagar with a bouquet of flowers and my favorite chocolates. It felt heavenly. His mere presence, though very rare, continues to be enough to comfort me and make me feel happy and safe. Then the doctor who operated me came on round to check on me around 1 p.m. that day. She said, and I quote in Hindi, "तुम बच गई, ऊपर जाने का ताम झाम लेके आई थी," which in English translates to "you were almost at the death door and you barely survived," and we all laughed. But what she said after that came as a jolt to me. She said that I can't conceive naturally post that incident. Of course, the doctors had already discussed it with my husband, so he knew and he had requested them to reveal it to me only after he arrives. The doctor also assured that the alternative of assisted pregnancy is there, which can be tried in future to keep our hopes alive. I didn't know what to say back then. I was already in a lot of pain due to the surgery and the blood transfusions. But yes, it did cross my mind that, oh God, why me? Why it happened to me? For the next 1 month, the way my husband, whose name is Neeraj, took care of me increased my love and respect for him many folds. I had not imagined that I would be taken care of so well. Life went on. I carried on living alone, dealing with my loneliness and work in Assam. And of course, as I said, I worked in all the states of Northeast India back then. Used to travel a lot. So days just passed by in auto mode probably. And Neeraj kept attending to the call of duty at borders. I had been lucky that my family never made me feel that it was a loss that I could not conceive naturally and could not have a child of my own. However, during social gatherings, we, and I would say we because it's not only me, even my husband faced this question that where are the kids? And I remember once a senior lady who is Neeraj's friend's mother asked me the same question, to which I answered that, "Auntie, we don't have kids." And her reaction was laden with a lot of scorn. And she said, and I quote, "Kitna career बनाओगी? अब परिवार पे भी ध्यान दो," which means in English translates to it's enough that you have invested in your career, now it's time for you to invest in family. And I felt miserable back then after hearing that how people can be so judgmental without even knowing one's journey and background. But I didn't care to explain things to her, moved on. Then in 2019, we decided to try assisted pregnancy, that is IVF. It has become very common now, but that does not mean that the pain and the how would I explain that? I mean, it's a very demanding process. So even though it has become common and now it is being accepted, it does not lessen the pain that a woman has to go through while going through the process. To be very honest, after the trauma I went through during my emergency operation of ectopic pregnancy in 2015, it was not easy for me to attempt IVF. It was a very difficult decision for me because it entailed all of that, which reminded me of what happened to me back then when I was going through the surgery for the emergency operation. Still, we attempted it, and my husband made even that time pleasure for me. He took 15 days leave during the gestation period after the embryo is transferred to the uterus. And as I said, his mere presence makes things come alive for me. So it was wonderful, although I know that I was going through something difficult, but that support was sufficient for me to get going and keep the determination on. And the day on which the pregnancy result was to be collected from the lab, I eagerly waited for him to come home in the evening. Guess what? He entered with a bouquet of my favorite roses, hugged me, and said, "I love you." I cried, hugging him, and we closed it there. And then, sorry, whenever I remember of that incident, it really
Take your time, ma'am. This is a safe space. Please take your time.
Yes. Anyway, so after that we decided to apply for adoption, and we did that in 2019, which has yet not resulted into anything, even after 3 years. And amid all this loneliness, infused with self-doubt, and of course antidote, that is family support, are the two consistent things which cling to me, and will continue to do so, I know.
Winnie, don't worry. We are doing this together. That's me, Neeraj. Everyone, good afternoon.
He is my husband, Colonel Neeraj. Thanks for joining. All right. So to now to complete the story, and we have almost come to the conclusion. So as I said that loneliness and family support, one is the antidote of the other. These two continue to cling to me, and I have learned to live my life, I would say, happily with the realities. The first one pushes me on the rocks, and the second one is the wind beneath my wings. I fly, I stand on my head. You know that I'm into yoga. I do headstands, and I'm very proud of that. I dance, I hum, and the support from the love of my life keeps me going. And I would like to conclude with a few lines from a poem that I penned some time back, and it goes like this. I'm the better half of a soldier where loneliness is life's order. Strangely, I happily lived alone for long before taking the vow. So is it the expectation of togetherness that often makes me feel so low? I doubt myself as weak. How can I complain when he's protecting the country from a mountain peak? I doubt if it's fine to confess that it bothers. But I recall anxiety, stress, depression are caused when we are living to please others. Hard to assess whether these are tough circumstances or my illusion, but my feeling of overwhelm is genuine. I choose to share and opine. Feeling restless, overwhelmed, lonely are all fine. Let's bring on more kindness, and hey, why don't you be my dopamine? Thank you.
Wow, that was such an inspiring talk. Uh, you are known for the yoga poses and everything else which we've been used to see. And now this was such an inspiring poem which you've chosen to end. You've talked about dopamine, and I'm sure the doctor will talk about the other four or three other things which are involved. You've talked about support, you've talked about family, you've talked about so many fantastic things, and you've talked about the fact that depression is caused when we are choosing to live for others, or we are choosing to live by others' rules. So I think you've captured so many things, and I think, Veena ma'am, you've made the doctor's task, the professional's task so much more easy. So with these words, I'd like to thank you, and I would like to invite our mental health expert for today. Something very interesting about private depressives has been that this is our 17th session, and we have had young and old, male and female persons who are well accomplished in their respective fields coming and sharing their stories. Similarly, with regards to mental health professionals, we've had people who are relatively young, people who are relatively senior in age. We've had people who are men, women, and from North India, East India, West India, South India, we've had people from everywhere. So I think that is showing the kind of reach. I would just like to introduce our very, very eminent speaker for today, Dr. Predna Kukriti, who is Associate Professor of Psychiatry in the very prestigious LHMC, Lady Hardinge Medical College of Delhi. She is the in charge of the women's mental health clinic, and I think that is why she is a very, very apt kind of speaker to dwell on some of the issues which have been highlighted by Veena ma'am. She has worked in the areas of prenatal and perinatal mental health, community psychiatry, stress management for healthcare workers, and she is a published author in the areas of forensic psychiatry, Indian perspective. She runs the mental health support group for healthcare workers at LHMC. So I would like to welcome you, ma'am, and maybe you can take these thoughts forward, which have been dwelt upon. I don't know. There is just one thing which I would like to mention. Today we find in society several kinds of people. You must be coming across them in your line of work every day. There would be people who are trying to blame themselves for no fault of theirs that they cannot beget children. And on the other hand, there are people who are so scared of trying to beget children that they don't even try. So all those kinds of problems that are there, especially amongst the educated lot, people who are well settled in life financially and all. So I would just hand over to the virtual dais to you, and over to you, Predna.
Thank you. Thank you, Parikshet ji, for a great introduction and setting the stage. I'm so happy to be part of this wonderful movement, not just group, it's a movement, Proud Depressives. And I just want to say, Veena ji, it was so powerful, so emotionally stirring. I can say that you definitely wrote these words for your own self, but the power of your emotions, your tears, they became words of pearl and they were inspiring. You said that they are montage of emotions. The beauty of emotions is this, that either they can get in the way if they lead on to a disorder, or they can get you on the way.
Can I just butt in for 1 minute?
Yeah,
Dr.
right.
Predna mentioned about emotions. I think emotions can also be your strength. Normally, people think
Yeah.
emotions are weakness. So I think maybe the doctor can talk more about it. Emotions can be strength as well. Please, ma'am.
Yes, definitely. That's what I mean. That emotions, they can either get in the way or they can get you on the way. So it works both ways. They could be strength. Hearing to your story, it it's like a very powerful journey. Very, I mean, the way you ended it, it appears to be on a euphemistic note, but I can understand the pain that you have gone through all these phases of living alone, phases of finding a lot of challenges through the reproductive journey, experiencing early pregnancy loss, going through fertility related issues, then concerns about the problems that one faces with the IVF, applying for adoption. But the most impactful thing is about this story was when Neeraj joined us. He was there in all throughout your narrative, but his presence here also reflects a lot that that's how you have reached to this euphemistic note. That's very nice. Just taking this conversation ahead, I want to say that I work in the area of perinatal mental health, and we often come across a range of issues that people face, ranging from difficulty in conception and the mental health issues around it, and even the mental health problems that people develop during the pregnancy and afterwards. Concerns about even as Dr. Parikshit was saying, that whether is this the right time to conceive, concerns about parenthood, will I be a right parent, and difficulty in current time era about balancing the professional life versus personal life. Yes, those all issues are very important. But picking up from Veena ji, I just want to ask Veena ji that yes, you mentioned all those things as something that today when we are hearing it, it looks that healing has occurred. But it doesn't say that the pain was not there. It just says that damage no longer control your life, but it must have been a difficult phase. So can you tell me more about when you mentioned that you experienced the first pregnancy loss, how difficult it was, what were the emotional problems that both of you as couple experienced, How did you cope with it? What was the most difficult part of it?
Thank you, Dr. Prerna, for that question. And I would answer it with the hope that it might somewhere relate to someone's experience out there and help them in whichever little way it could. So I got pregnant in 2015. When we got married, we knew that separation is inevitable in the army. My husband is an army officer. I knew that whenever I get pregnant, it has to be mostly on me to be on my own. But when it actually happened, which was not a planned pregnancy, uh, I have already shared it in my story also. It kind of shook me. I didn't know how to react and respond to that. One fine morning, again I was traveling for work and I had not got my periods in the last month. Something occurred to me and I just tested through Prega News at a friend's house when I was traveling to Delhi, and I realized I'm pregnant. I remember that moment. Sorry to be this elaborate, but I remember that moment also. I clicked the picture early in the morning, sent it to Neeraj on WhatsApp, and I said I'm pregnant. And unlike how they show and glamorize it in the movies, the feeling was not at all like that. I didn't know. I was feeling, oh my God, it's such a huge responsibility. How would I take care of all this all alone? And he is posted at a place where even if I want, I cannot be there with him. At the same time, I also had the desire to be pampered when I'm pregnant for those 9 months. And I didn't want to do everything on my own. So I would say maybe I was a bit selfish also back then, but it was a whirlwind of emotions that started quickly doing rounds in my mind, and I was not able to enjoy that moment, to be very honest. I was a bit stressed about it back then. And same for Neeraj. I remember having conversations with him, and like I mentioned in the story also, he said that if you are confused, if it is making you feel stressed, we can decide. I mean, there are options. But I would also like to add this point here, which is non-scientific, not proven anywhere, but you should always choose what you wish for. Because I remember back then, I was so confused, I didn't know what to do, and it just ended up into a tragic situation in my life. And it was an ectopic pregnancy. I had twins and all that, and you know the whole thing, what I went through. So, in a nutshell, I would say it's not easy, it's not linear, it is not black and white. You don't just feel happy. You feel so many things in one go, and you feel overwhelmed. If I have to capture everything in one word, it is a feeling of being being overwhelmed by so many things in one go. So that's how I felt at that point of time. Hemaba has also.
Hema ma'am, we'll come to you for the questions or the interjections once the doctor has finished. Is that okay? We'll ask Dr. Predna to continue. Thank you,
Right.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinay. That's a very powerful narrative to bring. That whenever it's not a woman who conceives, it's a couple who is planning for parenthood. As per our cultural settings and whatever is projected in media, it's just taken as the thing that it's the most joyous moment, most celebrated thing. But it's a fact of life that it's very much normal to have that confusion, that concerns about parenthood. And even in cases where it is not the concerns about how one is going to plan parenthood, it is very common that anxiety and depressive symptoms during the early part of pregnancy are found very common. But what you mentioned was about the early pregnancy loss. In scientific terms, we say that any pregnancy loss that happens before 20 weeks is labeled as early pregnancy loss. In most difficult thing about this is this that it is very much common. We say that nearly 33 up to 33% of pregnancies can end up as early pregnancy loss, which is a huge number. But since it is common, all it is healthcare providers consider it to be a very normal phenomena. That okay, medically it is fine. Come on, you could be pregnant next time, or okay, things can be better. But science has emerged which says that this leaves a very significant emotional impact on one's mother's mental health. And it is said that nearly 20 to up to 55% of women experience depressive symptoms. Nearly 30 to 40% of them experience anxiety symptoms. And almost 10% of them can develop post-traumatic stress-related symptoms, which, if the grief is not resolved well, leads on to increased duration of grieving and leads on to certain complications like flashback, numbness, not feeling comfortable about next pregnancy, or being very startled about even if the lady conceives again. People say that as a common myth that once the lady will conceive again, these things will go away. But the recent research says that this itself is a very important risk factor for developing further emotional and mental health related problems in future. What is not thought of is that miscarriage or the early pregnancy loss, it is death of a person whom none of us got the chance to meet. But the mother and couple had dreamt of a parenthood for that. It is the early time when even the couple has not even disclosed. Culturally, it is seen that in less than 12 weeks or so, people are not comfortable in sharing about the pregnancy. So this particular loss, when even one has not told even the surroundings, you and like the other grief-related process or death-related process where you have other family members come on to support to you. This is something that the couple is almost grieving alone, and it's often said that social support is the key to it to become better. That you very well reflected that presence of your husband and offering unconditional love and support to you that irrespective of everything we are here to manage this situation together. That came up as a very good help. But it's also said that for fathers they say that they are the forgotten mourners because yes, people understand that a woman is grieving, some remarkable change has happened in her body, in her side. But it's often seen when we talk about coping. There are two sets of coping. One is that it's often seen women have more of loss-oriented coping or the emotional-driven coping. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but in most of the cases. For men, it's in the most cases it's the problem-solving coping or the restoration-oriented coping. So men would, when they will see that the woman becomes distressed when they bring up this issue, so it may happen that they may tend to avoid bringing it up for the discussion. It's not the intention that they are not feeling that pain or they don't want to be supportive there. And in cases where couple do not talk much about it, a spouse may end up feeling that the father does not care about that loss. Here we had a very great bonding between both of you and he was a great support. But miscarriages in certain pregnancies, the depressive and anxiety or stress related symptoms often increase because of loss of social support. And it's very much needed that both the couples should be offered care. And definitely this is there that what a woman can do is that yes, talking up to the spouse about it, offering talking to other women about it because pregnancy loss is very common. We do not talk about it. Many women have gone through that same experience. So talking about it and family members should be very supportive that they should listen. They should not just sweep it under carpet that okay, this is okay, things will be better next time. The women should be given, the couple should be given good time to grieve. Everybody has a different timeline to grieve. So grieving this thing is very important. And also, as you said in your narrative, that sometimes family members or the society ends up providing unsolicited advice, unflinching comments. So those should be very well avoided. and that can certainly go a very long way. The next thing, Minati, I also want to ask you that yes, after this pregnancy loss, this was a very unique one where you experienced a setback that it had a permanent change in your life. You experienced a complication that said that there was difficulty in conceiving. So when we talk about difficulty with fertility, can you please tell that how does it affect one's relationship? How is it as an emotionally draining experience? And what are the things that can help a couple to come out of it?
Veena ma'am, if you would just, yeah.
Yes, yes. So we all know that infertility is taken as a taboo in our society, and it is very difficult to deal with, and the unsolicited advices coming from not only distant family members. In my case, it was always distant family members and people around, maybe neighbors, acquaintances, never came from my immediate family. I was very fortunate, but not that I was not expecting it. I was ready for it, that I might get to hear it from my in-laws or somebody, but fortunately it never, touch wood, it never happened. And that was also a revelation for me, that my husband's mother, you know how the relationship of daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law is treated in Indian families. And I was very skeptical and scared that what is there in store for me. Just a sec, there's some noise. I'm sorry, there was a lot of noise. I had to go and resolve that.
It's perfectly okay. That's the perils of working in the online world. They're perfectly okay. Mixy in the background, Sunday afternoon, it's perfectly fine.
I know. Yeah, so excuse me for that. Yes, so like I said, I was expecting it from maybe my mother-in-law, but it was such a revelation. Like she emerged to be such a great, wonderful, seasoned, mature lady, and I only respected her more and more because I got pregnant just after 1.5 years of my marriage, and I had still not known her very well. But this incident really helped us connect and bond so well because my respect for her only grew every passing day. The way she stood by me, the way she supported me. That said, I faced the question of where are the kids from family, from distant family. I will narrate one incident where my mother, my own mother, when she talked about how I was almost on the verge of losing my life because of a kind of pregnancy. Nobody understood what is ectopic pregnancy, but she just said that Veena underwent a very difficult kind of pregnancy where she was almost about to lose her life, and she got operated and somehow she was saved. One of my aunts, she said that, are you sure that it was life threatening, or was it herself aborting the child because she's so ambitious? And you won't believe, it broke my heart. I mean, people can say anything they can say. And somewhere it made me so bitter. I never felt like talking to that aunt of mine ever again. And imagine that was my own paternal side, not even my in-law side. Fortunately, from my in-law side, I have never had any kind of a comment which kind of troubled me ever. But the society, like the army fraternity, many of you are familiar, so you know that when one is a major, they are expected to have 1 or 2 kids in the age bracket of 3 or 6 years. So you will see everybody around having same kind of a family setup. So whenever we used to go to a social gathering, people, I don't blame them. Of course, that is how the grooming is. This is a social norm. You can't blame people for expecting what they see all around. So for us also, it used to be so difficult to explain to people that no, we don't have kids. We do not have kids. We have not left them back home. We don't have kids. So it was, and also they judge you that okay, he's major needed. So at major rank, he's expected to have two kids of this age. So where are they? So it used to be so difficult, more than me for him, I think. For Neeraj, it would have been even more difficult. I don't know uh, if he ever felt like that, but I always felt so for him, and I always used to tell him that please don't bother, just just say something funny and just get away from there. You don't have to explain to them what the situation is. So yes, everything put together, it's not a nice enabling environment that you get if you are childless in our society. And a lot of people will tell you a lot of things. Go do this, go see this doctor, go do that. But in my case, since I was so traumatized by my first pregnancy experience, honestly, I mean, at the risk of being judged as a bad woman, I'm saying this, that many times I felt that no, I don't want a child anymore if it entails going through this kind of a pain and trauma that I have gone through. So then when people used to feel pity for me, and they used to feel more bothered on my behalf, that oh my god, what will she do, she doesn't have a child, what will she do, how she would be feeling. I have heard these kind of comments as part of conversations. You get it, there's certain bit of intuitiveness in all of us, so you get it what people are intending to say. So I have many times felt like just clarifying. See, I don't feel pity for me. I'm not in that dire need of having a child. I'm fine. Trust me on that. But you just can't help what is there in someone else's mind. So they will keep on telling you, IVF करवा लो, बहुत सारे solutions है, ये करवा लो, अपना बच्चा होता है और बुढ़ापे का सहारा होता है, अभी ठीक लग रहा है, अभी young हो, you are young at this point of time, so you don't realize the need, but once you grow old you will feel that how important it is to have a child who is going to take care of you when you grow old, when you fall sick, and all sort of things. So yes, it was not easy, and it has not been easy because the mindset is such all around that you are, I mean, in the garb of sympathy and empathy, you get pity from people. And that is one thing that really bothers me all the time. Yeah.
Thanks, Vinay.
Very key points: sympathy, empathy, pity. So yes, ma'am.
Vinay, you very well said that all of us have our hidden struggles, but what makes it more painful is the preconceived notion-based judgment and the expectation that society brings in. When we talk about birth trauma, it's often said that trauma will be something after significant or some odd experience that one will experience in life, but what you experienced after the first pregnancy is also part of psychological birth trauma. That a person is so much disturbed about one experience to which it was not only about it did not ended up on a fine note, but it itself was traumatic. Now the research says that it is not only a social context, it is genetic in a way that now we are talking about epigenetic, where we say that any trauma that a mother experiences, it also translates into, it also affects her social things affecting our genetic transmission, and this trauma is transferred further in generations. A mother which has had difficult pregnancy, which has had difficult traumatic experience surrounding birth, can carry those anxiety and traumatic experiences to the further generation. And what society does not understand about these things is that any critical comments could be triggered to reinstigate all those traumas. So, in your case, it was very wonderful that you had a good support system. But in other cases, it is often seen that because of infertility, it puts a lot of strain on the relationship of couple within the family, and that also further promotes the disharmony and depressive and anxiety symptoms. People develop adjustment disorders. But even when we talk about, you said that people offered you the option of assisted reproduction, that IVF can be done. IVF is a wonderful option, as people told you, you also considered it, but it also has its own difficulties about that. It is a prolonged process where a couple again goes through a lot of cycles of expectations, being not able to meet with that, experiencing disappointment, and also chasing that particular cycle, reproductive cycle sometimes end up bringing difficulty in sexual intimacy, chasing a particular calendar for the sexual activity. And it also sometimes people are not able to put up a line that to have the realistic expectation that till what setting to chase for this particular dream. People end up draining all ultimate resources that they have, which further brings in disappointment. So, if a couple is experiencing emotional turmoil because of infertility or fertility related treatments, it is very important that what should they do as a couple to take care of themselves, and what the caregivers can offer them to support. It's you were very candid to understand your emotions, articulate them, label them, and express them. That doesn't happen so easily. Really, that by virtue of your profession, you understand the concept of behavioral change. But we have a lot of people coming up to us who are distressed, but they will not be able to understand what emotion they are experiencing. So, first and very important thing is that allow the feelings to be there, accept them as they are, and not to fight with them. Understand that like you're as if you're standing on the beach and the sea waves are going to come and hit you. Sometimes it will be a high tide, sometimes it will be a low tide, but in fluctuations these emotions are going to come and be around you. So there is no point fighting with them, just accept them. And accept them as the temporary states, not as the permanent setbacks. Talk about how you're feeling with your near dear ones, spouse, other important caregivers, and create a plan that is focused on the reality, and determine that what are the realistic targets that one wants to chase. You very well mentioned that you decided to go for a treatment, then within a few years you took a stock about the situation and you changed the things that, okay, now I don't want to go for this way. And also it is very important that one should, we talk about circles of control. There are n number of things happening during that scenario which are not in our control. We should make up a circle of control that what are the things that I can control. I can control that what information I can gather about this problem, where I can go for treatment options, to what extent I can do it. But there are things outside the circle of control, things that I don't have locus on. What critical comments people will put in, what will be the outcome of these procedures. So active effort to tell oneself that, okay, these are the only things that are in my control and I will work on actively on them. Other things I'll accept as they come on. Because sometimes when we talk about coping strategies, things that one cannot change, it's not always possible that one can change the situation. In those, the advice that reappraisal of the situation is also okay. Not saying that a particular procedure failed, is that I failed. Instead of saying that, okay, I have learned 10,000 ways that did not work. So I am trying to think of a new strategy that you wonderfully narrated in your narrative. That's great and inspiring, but that does not happen often with the majority of people who come to us for the help. And what caregivers should be doing is that very important is that stop asking judgmentally a couple about their reproductivehood, their parenthood, their planning. Allow everybody their own timeline. Stop giving people advices. Just tell them that if you need anything, if you want to talk about it or any resources, we are always there. To allow people to share when they feel that they are in a comfortable space. And also, Veena ji, you mentioned that you considered about adoption. In the Indian setting, we come across in our perinatal mental health clinic a lot of women who are having difficulty with chasing the IVF cycles or are not able to afford it financially. But even adoption as a process comes with a lot of difficulty to them. They say families are not there with them. So please, can you shed some light based on your experience? How did you reach on to this decision? What did you see in your surroundings?
Yes, so adoption, of course, is not a well accepted phenomenon in our society. It takes a lot. In fact, the way we are conditioned for a couple, it is not easy to accept someone else's child as their own. And this you realize only when you are there to do it, like when you are deciding to do it in your own life, then all these things become reality for you. Before that, you just talk about it. Many people talk about adoption, they show it in the movies. Somebody goes to a children's home and a child holds their finger and that child becomes that person's child. But it really doesn't happen. It is nowhere close to that kind of situation that they show. Completely different in real life. And the first and the foremost thing is the difficult decision to decide whether one will be able to accept an adopted child or not, and that we also went through. Me and my husband, we have had long discussions, conversations about it, that whether we will be able to accept. And one thing is talking about it, but when it really comes into reality, whether we will be able to accept and raise a child who is not our own because of our own conditioning, because what we have learned, what we see, that the so-called अपना बच्चा होता है, अपना खून होता है, and all that. So we went ahead with a lot of apprehensions, and still, like I said, it is still, I mean, the circle is still not closed. It's been 3 years, but we have come a long way in those 3 years. When we applied in 2019, we were still going through the process of IVF, and the idea and agreement was if we get a child through IVF, this automatically ends. The adoption thing automatically dies its own death, and we have our own child. So that's a backup. That's how it started initially. Because very honest and candid, we also didn't know. I mean, we had never seen adoption happening in any close family circles, so we had no idea how it unfolds. So with all those doubts and confusions, we applied, and as you know, it happens through Central Adoption Resource Agency, CARA, which is under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. It's a long drawn process, like much longer than we had expected. So it is actually funny because we were also quite influenced by Bollywood earlier. We used to see someone goes to the children home, takes a child, brings home. It doesn't happen like that. To the extent that, like 3 years, it's a long time. Things change, right? One would have decided to adopt maybe, and then your life circumstances might change after 6 months itself. 6 months also is a long time, and something happens, and then you are not in a situation to adopt, or you change your mind, or anything can happen, right? So it's a very long process. So it is both an advantage and a disadvantage. How an advantage? Because it tests you. Like this long time really tests you and sees whether your decision was momentary and an impulsive decision because somewhere you felt that you really need a child and you just wanted to have one, or it is something that you have really thought through and you stick to it as a determination. So this whole long journey that we have gone through has tested us and only helped us in strengthen our conviction that yes, we are ready. We can adopt a child. We are ready for it. Of course, in family, it is not easy to convince. My own, like educated people, educated contemporary people have a lot of questions around it. I have faced it myself. My own cousins, my own friends, they say that, are you sure? We have seen adopted children in our families and they never turn out to be their own. They can never become your own. I have heard things like these. So yes, I mean you will come across many comments and many examples through your family members and friends, which will shake your conviction in between. So like you said, it's like a wave. You keep going high tide, low tide. At times you feel very convinced, then you start doubting your decision whether I've taken the right decision. But thanks to the red tapeism in India, it's it's such a long process that eventually, if you come to the conclusion of having a child, if that happens, then there's a kahavat in Hindi, thok peet ke. So you thoko and peto your own emotions and your own decision. And then if it really happens, then you know that you have taken the right decision and you stick to it and you just carry forward with it. But that taboo of having an adopted child is very much there, and I would not say I'm not affected by that. I many times have got affected by hearing that, and also my husband, I know that he also, and like for men, more than women, for men, I think it is also associated with their manhood, not having a child and the issue of infertility. So that adopted child would always be a reminder. I think so. This is my own observation that probably that adopted child is could be a reminder of the so-called failure that infertility is associated with for a man. So it's not easy. I mean, you need a lot of grit and determination to decide and take that decision forward till the conclusion. One side is the social and emotional side. Am I audible? Yes. One side is the social and emotional side, and the other side is the legal side of it. That legal side really tests your patience. And through Kara, I mean, it is almost like for us, it would be something which if it happens, would be a dream come true if it happens. But we are still carrying on with the process. We have not left hope.
That's very powerful for you to be able to analyze all the sides and say a honest version of it. Definitely in India, it's great to hear that when it comes to enhancing the longevity of life through kidney transplant, renal transplants, some acceptance has started coming for accepting the transplant. So donors still we have a long way to go. But when it comes to adoption and accepting a child in the family, still there are a lot of roadblocks legally and socially, as you mentioned. That's there, ma'am. I can just say that this entire journey from a difficult pregnancy to ranging with fertility issues or challenges that are fertility related treatment poses and concerning the adoption, it, it's a huge challenge for anybody. It's very much possible that true in your case with your own resilience and with a good social support, you were able to maintain a good balance in your life. But we all must be open that many of the listeners to this program might also be experiencing this, and it cannot be the same for everybody. It is possible that some people can only develop mental health problems, like experiencing depression or anxiety transiently in the moment and not severe enough to hamper anything, so they can able to cope very well. But there will be a good subset of chunk The data suggests that nearly the people who are suffering with these fertility related issues, nearly 30 to 40% of couples can experience depressive and anxiety disorders per se. If one feels that these emotional problems have reached to the extent where they are hampering one's personal and professional life, there should not be a stigma in seeking out for professional help. You mentioned very well that you are able to utilize your own resources in form of Kathak, music, doing yoga. But if there are people who, despite using these resources, are not able to take care of the problems, I just want to give them a message that it's okay to be not okay in such tough, difficult circumstances, because life is almost like a raft trip down a river. Along with the slow water and shallows, it is inevitable that one is going to get those rapids and turns. So when they come, as we prepare for the raft trip, that we take up a map, we take guidance from the trusted mentors, we go pack with extra life jackets, we carry a strong raft. The same way for our mental health, when we are experiencing ups and downs, there is no harm in connecting to people who have experienced it, seeking their advice, sharing one's own experiences, as this group is very well doing, taking care of oneself, and if one feels that things are not working, then seeking for professional help. Yes, ma'am.
You brought this important point of having a support group. Of course, our group, Proud Depressives, is a wonderful platform where we share diverse kind of themes related to mental health. In my case, I tried exploring if I can have a support group of women who are like me. But unfortunately, my experience had been very negative because I have seen no one wants to talk about it. To the extent that even for IVF, people don't want to disclose that they are taking the IVF treatment to have a child. And I have seen it in very, very close circles. Like, it's funny that you end up seeing them at the same doctor's clinic where you are going, and a day before you have spoken to them and there was no mention of it. So this whole thing of infertility being taken and linked to your personal failure probably has affected and repelled people from opening up about it. And I have seen, I had to connect with so many of my friends who were like great friends before, but when this conversation and when the main topic of conversation started becoming this, that infertile, they are also in the same boat, they are also not having kids, and trust me, I know so many, and we all know through the NFHS data that the fertility rates have now stagnated, and a lot of us are in the same boat who are more or less my age, in their mid-30s and all that. But I have seen nobody wants to talk about it, and it is so strange. That now, where do you find people to talk to if the people who are in the same life situations are also not ready to open up and talk about this? So where do you find support? It really made me feel withdrawn. I mean, my very close friends, they do not feel like talking about it. They don't open up. But I wish to talk, I wish to vent out all that I'm going through, all my anxieties, all my tensions, and what is, I mean, something that at times when you're anxious, you start thinking about the worst and the future, distant future, all that. Many times I've felt like that I should discuss it with somebody who might relate to my situation, because apparently they are also in the same situation, but nobody, trust me, nobody so far has opened up, and those who were initially talking have also now closed, I have seen. So it led to a lot of withdrawal symptoms in me. I started feeling that, is it something that is wrong with me? Why do I need to share? I mean, I am strong enough, I have to deal with it on my own. Why do I need people to talk to? And probably that was the starting point for me to get into so many activities. Of course, it ended up being channelized in a constructive way. and I was so much into my Kathak and everything, and of course office and all that, that somewhere it did not make me feel that I need people to talk to, but the fact is that it emerged from there. That was the fundamental point where I started channelizing my energy elsewhere, because I didn't find anybody to talk to. Those who are not in my situation, of course, will not relate to it, and I mean, I will not feel like talking to them about it, because I will feel that they will judge me. That always happens, still happens. And those who are in my situation are so close that even if they were my best of the friends earlier, when this situation had not occurred in their and our, I mean, both our lives, they were very, very close to me. We used to talk every day, but now they do not anymore talk, because they feel that when we talk, maybe the topic of discussion would be this, because I'm very open about it. I keep talking about this issue of infertility, child, and all that, and everything. But they are probably not comfortable, and I don't blame them. But I am trying to say that in India, there is a dire need of uh, having a support group, and not for the heck of it, not having a support group for the heck of it, that we need 4 or 5 people. They really need to have this in their heart, that they want to offer support, because of the fact, and by the virtue of being in the same situation as the other person, and that is related to fertility. And this is a gap that I experience personally. And I say this, I'm quite privileged in that way. I'm educated, I have my own professional network, I work for a good organization. In spite of that, I feel I'm in such a situation. Imagine women who do not have any social circle beyond their family, what they would be going through. I mean, for them, it would be unimaginable first to even talk about it, because probably talking about it is taken as something which makes them a bad woman, probably. I mean, how can you not have a child? How can you say that not having a child is normal? You should keep blaming yourself. How can you not have a child? So, and I know, I mean, I come from a middle class family. I have relatives who are in that situation, and I personally know them. But it is so unfortunate that when I'm not able to find a support group in my own circle, how can I expect to help them? And I feel very helpless in those situations.
Thank you very much. You have actually proved these words to let us into the spirit that emotion can get in the way or get you on the way. So they got you on the way, you sublimed it beautifully to something constructive to look forward to. That's true that you are a resilient person who took this difficult situation as challenge, not as threat. You were committed to take the things in your control, whatever you can control, and accept rest things which cannot be done much with it. But it's it's not just with the infertility, but many such sensitive issues, even the mental health that we are talking about. We still have a long way to go where people can feel more comfortable about talking about these issues. I think we need more such conversations, you say more such candid conversations, or for laymen say more such unashamed conversations where we feel proud in disclosing, in accepting our emotions, our state, and feeling proud about it that okay, this is a challenge, this is how I am going through it, and this is how we can sail together through it. So thank you. Dr. Parikshet, please over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you very much, Veena, ma'am. What do I say? It's such a fantastic conversation that both of you have had. There are so many threads, and for the benefit of our listeners, and for the benefit of, I know a lot of people are going to be looking at these programs online later on through the recordings. I would just like to try to sum up, because अब ज़्यादा कुछ बचा नहीं है कहने को या सुनने को. Dr. Predna has touched upon the role of the father, the role of the family, and the support of the family and the community. She mentioned something very nice which we find gaining traction as fathers as the silent mourners. I think the role of the father as a parent is something which we in India are now talking about, something which the West began to talk about in the 80s. So the issue of paternity leave for Virat Kohli, the Twitter CEO Parag Agarwal going on 3 months paternity leave, and then Anushka Sharma saying that okay, now people are talking about it very good. So I think these are the certain things when Virat Kohli went on paternity leave, chose to miss an important test match in Australia. People were questioning his commitment. So these are the role of the fathers actually, and in our speaker's case, as has been rightly pointed out by one of the members present today, Abdul Ghani sir, great Dheeraj from Colonel Neeraj. I think that is very, very nicely put. Dr. Predna has mentioned from her experience as the head of the Women's Mental Health Clinic at LHMC, high percentage of women suffering from depression of various kinds. She specializes in perinatal depression, so I think she is the very right person to talk about it. It was also very nice to see how the doctor got the sufferer to talk about it and open up. First of all, I don't believe, I mean, that when Veena ma'am said that she's in her mid 30s, I was placing her at much younger actually. So I think the old adage of not asking a lady her age no longer holds good. I would have placed her in the 20s. But anyway, she mentioned, so based on that. And so the attributes of a good mental health professional, if I may, good listening, good observation, empathy, not pity, willingness to spend time educating the patient. I think all of these boxes, ma'am, you have ticked. So very, very professional approach, and the humility with which you have dealt with these issues, the broad depth of knowledge which you've had, the breadth of knowledge, the spread of knowledge, and this was a very great example, I thought, the high tide, low tide. Because in law we talk about lunacy, and so lunacy actually I was very surprised. Etymologically speaking, comes from lunar. So when we say somebody is a lunatic, it actually has the gravitational pull of the. I thought it was going lambi chhota, somebody is just faffing. But then I studied it in detail with regards to a case. Then I found that yes, this is actually the case, and the gravitational pull of the moon determines the state of the mind. There is a fantastic article I thought which I have shared. Dr. Abhishek has also shared one article published in a Harvard blog which talks about the relationship between what you eat and how you feel. And I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Abhishek for introducing us to our fantastic speaker for today, our mental health professional for today. Absolutely fantastic. I would have talked about Kara because I have had my own professional relationship with Kara as a legal counsel and advising them. I know that Kara is totally bureaucratic, and 2-3 years wait is not uncommon. So ma'am has touched upon it. There are enough and more legal hassles because there is a huge demand and the supply is not there. And then people have preferences in India for the male child. There has to be, in law, there has to be a gap between the adopting person and the person who's sought to be adopted. The gender issue is there. So for example, a single mother cannot adopt a boy up to a certain age, and so on and so forth. Himashri ma'am has mentioned something very, very interesting. She has been a fantastic speaker in the past, and I am just reading out what she has mentioned. She herself has endured a miscarriage, and she endured a lot of problems which she has talked about in the past, and so she has a lot of empathy for what you are talking about. Actually, in the West, nobody asks you about your religious beliefs, your caste, your marital status. It's rude. You can't do it. Your political beliefs, whether you have kids or not, why don't you have kids or not. ये सब casual social settings में वहाँ पे नहीं होता है. But India में so common. Paresh Rawal will do that in a movie. घर में बच्चे हैं, कितने हैं, कौन सी क्लास में पढ़ते हैं, क्यों नहीं है. That is so common in India in settings. You mentioned it. It is important to have a very thick skin. That's my own personal view. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, rightly summed up. किशोर कुमार सॉन्ग, लोगों का काम है कहना. It's the story, the old man, the son and the donkey. You put the donkey on the head, there is a problem. You walk with the donkey, there is a problem. You make the old man sit on the donkey, there is a problem. You make the son sit on the donkey, there is a problem. You make the donkey ride alone, there is a problem. Both of you sit on the donkey, there is a problem. कुछ भी आप करेंगे लोगों को प्रॉब्लम होगा. सो थोड़ा सा थिक स्किन होना बहुत जरूरी है. एंड हेमश्री मैम एड्स more substance to what I am saying. Of course, I don't have that much of fluency of English which Madam has. So she says that whether failing to conceive, not getting married, losing your husband, सब कुछ में insensitive comments सुनने पड़ते हैं. So you cannot control others' reactions. You have to develop your own coping mechanisms. And she blocked out a lot of people who were erstwhile earlier very dear to her, who were insensitive, and I think that's the right thing that she did. One of our previous speakers, mental health professionals, Professor Rajesh Sagar, said exactly the same thing which Madam has said today. It is okay not to be okay, and I think I found this to be very beautiful when she said life is like being on a raft on a rapid, and perfect. I mean, actually you should enjoy it, because being on a rapid, it gives a lot of fun. And lastly, I would just like to say that the coping mechanisms are very important, which both the doctor has mentioned and Veena ma'am has mentioned, that, keeping yourself involved with office work, keeping busy, keeping preoccupied, keeping diverse activities. As mental health professionals say, you offer a menu of activities, yoga कर लीजिए, music कर लीजिए, reading कर लीजिए, जो आपको पसंद आता है. exercise जरूरी करिए है, because उससे the necessary the dopamine etc are stimulated. Veena ma'am mentioned 3 or 4 times that bad woman quote unquote, ये बकवास है. 3-4 बार आपने बोला, इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ, this is all nonsense. Who decides bad क्या होता है, good क्या होता है? This is all bunkum.
That is exactly why I said it. Because we can't fight perceptions. Yes.
वो perception जिसका है वो अपने घर पे रखे. And one should, bad woman, मतलब it's actually not, मतलब जो लोग घर पे बैठे कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं वो बोल के ताने मार रहे हैं, it's not good actually.
वही है ना कि आप, मुझे तो लगता है ना कि गधों का रहना बहुत जरूरी है. दे सोसाइटी. जब हम कोई भी चेंज की बात करते हैं ना, तो वी डू क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स. उसमें एक एक्सपेरिमेंट आर्म रहता है, कंट्रोल आर्म रहता है. सो बिना कंट्रोल के ना, मतलब लाइफ कितना मोनोटोनस हो जाएगा. तो मुझे लगता है कि सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है एजुकेशन. बाहर लोगों को समझ में आता है इनफर्टिलिटी. यहाँ इनफर्टिलिटी जिसको स्पेलिंग नहीं आती,
मोर देन दैट इट इज अ मैटर ऑफ चॉइस.
जो
नहीं करना
कि नहीं है, और बहुत बड़ा बिहेवियर चेंज लाने के लिए मूवमेंट चलाना होगा. और अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसमें टाइम बहुत लगता है. ना तो हमारे पास है, ना तो आपके पास है, ना तो सरकार के पास है. क्योंकि सरकार जो है वो 5 साल के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे आती है. आई फील समटाइम बैड फॉर पॉलिटिशियन, क्योंकि डॉक्टरों के लिए हम लड़ते हैं कि हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट 5 साल का है, बट पॉलिटिशियन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट 5 साल का होता है. तो उनसे ज़्यादा मतलब रेगुलर पोस्ट तो होती नहीं है. और बाकी जो अलग अलग लेवल पे लोग हैं, दे वांट टू अचीव समथिंग इन अ शॉर्टर टाइम. A behavior modification should be an issue for all the government, irrespective of who is coming and who is going. So it takes time. बाहर में आप जाएंगे, लोगों का तरीका, और इंडिया में अलग अलग स्टेट में भी बहुत वेरिएशन है. जो बातें आप बिहार यूपी में सुनेंगे वो आप केरला में बिल्कुल नहीं सुनेंगे, तमिलनाडु में नहीं सुनेंगे, क्योंकि ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम उनका जो बाकी चीज़ों के प्रति, आप कभी भी महाराष्ट्र में चले जाएंगे, आप जो कितने भी लो सोशियो इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रेटा की वुमेन है, सी विल टेल यूट्रस. अगर आपने उसको कह दिया बच्चे दानी, उसको समझ में नहीं आएगा आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. सो दे विल कॉल सर्विक्स. बट यू गो टू बिहार. एक आर्टिकल आया था बिहार में सर्वाइकल कैंसर वैक्सीन पे. उन्होंने पता क्या लगा रखा था? नेक वाला जो सर्वाइकल रीजन है उसका फोटो लगा रखा था. नाउ यू सी द अंडरस्टैंडिंग. सो एवरीथिंग, स्पेशली हेल्थ रिलेटेड जो रिपोर्टिंग है, वो कोविड को छोड़ के बाकी किसी भी हेल्थ के लिए मुझे नहीं लगता है इतना सीरियस रिपोर्टिंग हो. तो कोविड की नॉलेज लोगों को बहुत अच्छी है, कैसे फैलता है, कैसे नहीं फैलता है. आप रिक्शा वाले से पूछिए, वो आपको कोवैक्सीन और कोविशील्ड का डिफरेंस बता देगा. कौन सी कंपनी ने बताई है वो है. इवन रशियन वैक्सीन का भी नाम उनको पता है. सो इट्स अबाउट एजुकेशन. हाउ डू यू रिपोर्ट द हेल्थ स्टोरीज एंड क्या आप देखते हैं. सो मुझे लगता है हेल्थ रिलेटेड, चाहे वो इनफर्टिलिटी हो, चाहे वो कैंसर हो. कैंसर इज अगेन ए डिजीज which is very highly related to the mental health. तो जब आप जाएंगे और जानेंगे ना कि किसी लोगों की आज इस 2022 में शादी इसलिए नहीं हो रही है क्योंकि इसके मदर को फादर को कैंसर था। जस्ट इमेजिन, मतलब आपको लगता है कि मतलब सारी ये जो क्रांति टीवी पे देखने के बाद और नेट पे देखने के बाद जो हम सुपर पावर बने हुए हैं, आपको लगता है कि ये सारी चीजें आपको बहुत छोटा बनाती है। सो दिस इज अ ग्रेट प्लेटफॉर्म, द ओनली वन थिंग विच इज रिक्वायर्ड टू एडुकेट। लेकिन हाँ, गधे को घोड़ा नहीं बनाना है, वो आप कर भी नहीं सकते, वो हमारे पास नहीं है। ठीक है, जैसे ब्रिज कोर्स से आप जो अल्टरनेटिव मेडिसिन वालों को एमबीबीएस नहीं बना सकते, वैसे ही आप गधों को घोड़ा नहीं बना सकते। कोई टैबलेट नहीं है, कोई मैकेनिज्म नहीं है। तो ठीक है, घोड़ों को अपना काम करने रहना चाहिए, क्योंकि हम अलग हैं इसलिए हम घोड़े हैं। सो ठीक है, हमें गधा नहीं बनना है। सो एक 24 घंटे का टाइम है, या तो आप लड़ने में वेस्ट करें या डिफरेंस बनाएं। लोग आपको आपके काम के लिए याद रखने वाले हैं। सो इट्स बी पॉजिटिव।
I think those are very good words by Dr. Abhishek. And you see, I mean, we need fools in society. They fulfill a very important requirement in society. Actually, see, it's like in a class, because I'm a teacher. So in a class, if there are no fellows who are flunking, then why will we appreciate the fellows who are getting 75 or 80? So I think he's right. More importantly, I think it's a matter of choice. I mean, it's not easy. Let me tell you. I mean, our parents, I salute to them. It's not easy to bring up kids, especially in the milieu that you have now. You're living in nuclear families, you're living in small flats, you're living in a society wherein both parents have to work. ये choice का मामला नहीं है. You have to work. Okay, if you want to have a decent lifestyle, you have to work. And it's not, it's professionally not fair that if a lady is well qualified, nowadays everybody is, because everybody goes to school and college. So कि आप घर बैठ जाएं. You may not have enough time. So I would just always say, ma'am, you are very, very attractive, very, very smart, very, very good with your work, and don't ever let any idiot tell you that you are a bad woman. So I would just like to invite Hemashri, ma'am, because she was wanting to make an interjection at that point. Please, ma'am, if you'll just unmute yourself. Yeah, you are on mute.
Ma'am, you are on mute.
Yeah, this is probably the only reason why you may need to have kids, because they are good with technology better than you are.
Yes, yes, well.
So we should have Neeraj ji also speaking after Himashri ma'am finishes.
मैम आप म्यूट पे हो अभी भी।
मैं जो है मैम ने जो चीज़ें कही हैं वो थोड़ा सा आई विल जस्ट शेयर देन बिकॉज शी इज सेइंग दैट शी हैज बिकम एन एक्सपर्ट ऑन इनफर्टिलिटी बाय रीडिंग बुक्स बिकॉज एवरीबॉडी वाज मेकिंग हर फील द सेम वे एंड शी इज रेड एंड शी इज पीपल हैव नो काइंड्स ऑफ मेडिकल एक्सपीरियंस एंड वो उनको ज्ञान दे रहे हैं। एस्ट्रोलॉजर कह रहा है कि कार्मिक डेफिसिट है और बिकॉज इसी की कार्मिक डेफिसिट की वजह से यू आर बॉर्न अ वुमन। आई थिंक दिस इज फैंटास्टिक। सच people should be given a Padma Shri according to me, and I think it is actually a privilege to be born a woman, because if you see any place, any platform, women are actually doing much better. And in fact, if you were to, I think Dr. Day must be here. I saw him. He may have left for some work. He is the expert on history. But if you go through history and sociology and law and all of this, women are actually the privileged side historically. The males have tried to take over society. They have tried. It's a conspiracy by the men to keep them inside. The same thing, the Eklavya ka angutha, same theory, that so that they can actually survive. Otherwise, actually, given equal opportunity, women will always outshine. इसमें कोई rocket science नहीं। जो आप लोग मेडिकल साइंस से हैं, आप लोग सब जानते हैं, फीमेल फीटस इज मोर हार्डी देन द मेल फीटस, तो वो वहीं से ज्यादा हार्डी होता है। जो भी आपकी ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज होती हैं जहाँ पे ये आपके सेक्स डिटर्मिनेशन टेस्ट नहीं होते, छत्तीसगढ़ के गांव में चले जाइए, झारखंड के गांव में चले जाइए, ऑलवेज आपका जो है सेक्स रेशियो पॉजिटिव होता है।
सर आप नॉर्थ ईस्ट चले जाइए, वहाँ आपको पता चलेगा क्या एज ए मेल, मतलब आई थिंक दैट इज ग्रेट रिस्पेक्ट जो वो काम करते हैं। आई नेवर सॉ ए फीमेल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर। जो मैंने पूछा आप क्या करते हो, तो शी सेड आई एम ए कॉन्ट्रैक्टर। मैं कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि मतलब आई हैव नेवर सीन.
Yes, you will find them doing everything. You go to Myanmar, you go to Meghalaya, etc. सब कुछ कर लेते हैं बीड़ी बनाने से लेकर ट्रैक्टर चलाने तक. हेमा मैम.
Yeah, I have finally I could unmute myself. Thank you, Veena. It was so inspiring to listen to your speech, and in such a brief way, you have put up everything wonderfully. I have gone through this experience for a brief period of 1.5 years. I have already written the messages. I would like to say that this thing Dr. Parikshet has said that we have to ignore people or cut off our connection, which I have been doing. And recently I have searched another new things, that while trying to disconnect myself to toxic people, my world has shrunk beyond imagination. And now my new trait is, handling loneliness. क्योंकि कितनों को बाहर करूंगी अपना दुनिया से. So I have already put it up, Veena, whether to have children, when to have children, when to get married, and if we happen to lose our spouse, in each of these circumstances we have to face so much of insensitivity. I'm really sorry that I'm born in India, and now I'm just trying to pretend that it is not India.
No, it should be the other way around. Like I said, you have to just you see anywhere. Archana ma'am is in the IAS. You see it is the top service, and you find 40% of them are now women. And you see people when the selection takes place on the day when I remember it came in the newspaper. There was Women's Day, 8th March, and in one particular interview board, the girls who had come, all of them got selected. ऐसा कभी नहीं होता लड़कों के साथ.
Dr. Parikshet, I would like to add here that woman just being seen is not enough. Finally, how many women are being heard? How many women have been able to make it to the top 2% of bureaucracy, medical, engineering, everywhere is what really matters.
So this is all the inherent bias.
That generation that we are not happy just by being seen. We want to excel. And I trust, I tell you, it is not really easy. I cannot know. I am a very passionate worker. Whether I am good or bad, I cannot say it. But so many times I heard people telling me on my face that I'm brilliant, but I'm very headstrong, I'm this, I'm that. There is no end to such complaints. So it is at times very difficult to manage one's emotion in such adverse situation. But I'm happy, and I take this opportunity to thank my boss, Archana ma'am, for giving me a wonderful support in the phase where I needed to heal. Thank you so much. It has been an enlightening discussion.
So we'll welcome Archana ma'am, who's been able to join us after a long time. You're looking fabulous, and you've lost tons of weight.
I thought it started at 2.
No. It was supposed to end at 2. इसीलिए तो मैंने आपको मैसेज किया था. Will you be coming?
Oh God.
So you must write a paper or share some tips on how to lose weight.
I need that.
No.
So we were just talking, and so this is like I was mentioning, Hema ma'am, this is the conspiracy to keep women, behind. But अब वो ज़्यादा दिन चलेगा नहीं. अभी वो whether you have the women's reservation bill or not, very soon you will have a women AIMS director. You already have a women VC in JNU. You will have a women cabinet secretary also. You will have women home secretaries also. ये चलेगा अभी देखना थोड़े दिन में ये this will happen. This is so it is people have written that you should not, you've also mentioned you should not be born a woman, and Neeta ma'am has taken the pains to get up at 7 o'clock and join us. So it's not easy on a Sunday morning, 7 o'clock in Ireland. And you talk about, she says that you've talked about channelizing it in a positive way. So this is well done. She's encouraging people to go in for adoption, which we have discussed in India, the Kara and all the other things. Mr. Gautam Sinha talks about unashamed conversation, which is I think a very, very important thing. They had also made a request that if it is possible, they would like to hear Colonel Neeraj also. So maybe someday we would like to hear him also, or if he's around, I don't know. Yeah, he is. So we would definitely like to hear you, sir, because behind every successful man there is a woman to suna hai, but behind every successful woman also there is a man. So over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colonel Neeraj. husband of Veena.
ये
Correct?
सबसे बढ़िया इंट्रोडक्शन था आज तक का सबसे बढ़िया इंट्रोडक्शन. सो एंड सो
Well,
हस्बैंड ऑफ सो एंड सो, क्योंकि हमारे आधार कार्ड पे वाइफ ऑफ सो एंड सो लिखा होता है. सो वेरी गुड.
I'm speaking from corner of the country in Arunachal Pradesh. And, well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to have connected with such wonderful, learned people. And, getting to the topic that we are discussing today. Yes, it has been an absolutely roller coaster ride since 2015 incident. But I would say I'm lucky to have Veena in my life. Not because of what she is doing, but because of the simple grit and determination that she has. Number of times it has so happened that she stood and she was far stronger in everything that we were doing. And to quote a very small example, it may not sound to the topic of today, but okay, it is related to my own profession. Like in army, because of a pyramidal structure, that is, there is only one chief of army staff and further down below. So the promotions are very scarce. As in the first select rank, that is after lieutenant colonel, you become a colonel. That is the first rank wherein everything is considered, and 70% of the people, they do not make it even to the first select rank. So at the age of say 38, 39, the organization tells you that, if I put it that you're not good enough to be promoted. Not because they are not good enough, just because there are no vacancies. So no matter what you have done in your life, what all hardships you have faced in your life, at the age of 38, 39, by the virtue of the system, almost, am I audible? Almost 70% of the officers.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. Almost 70% of the officers will not reach to even the first select rank. I was very fortunate to be on the other side. And why I quoted this example, because it just happened, I just got promoted on 30th of December last year. So the force behind that is Veena. Yes, there were phases, there were a lot of phases wherein I was very perturbed, very disturbed, very apprehensive that whether I'll reach to that level or not. Or will I also join the league wherein I'll be told that you're not good enough. And in all those moments, Veena was there standing as a rock behind me. In fact, every time she told me that no matter what, it is the love which is there. It is not by the virtue of your rank or your promotion that we are there. It is the love which is there, and that is what really matters. And even when I got the result, I got promoted, those words were more important than the promotion that I got. So yes, in everything that we have been facing, I feel truly blessed and lucky to have her. That it's good to have someone who is so determined in everything, and it gives me actually a lot of courage and support and inspiration to do well. I'll put it that way. So I'm lucky to be her husband. Thank you so much.
That's so beautiful, and congratulations on the promotion, and wish you all the very best, Colonel Neeraj. And there is a share. Sir, आप खुद बोलना चाहेंगे या मैं बोल दूं आपकी तरफ से? आप खुद बोलें, ज्यादा बेहतर हो आपके लिए.
आया इसीलिए गुड आफ्टरनून. इसीलिए मैंने शेर, बहुत प्यारा शेर है कि प्यार इतना तो, एंड इट इज फॉर बोथ ऑफ यू, ओके, कि प्यार इतना तो किसी से न किया था जानम, प्यार इतना तो किसी से न किया था जानम, तुझसे पहले कोई तुझसा न मिला था जानम, तुझसे पहले कोई तुझसा न मिला था जानम. और बंद मुट्ठी मेरी खुलवाई थी जब लोगों ने, बंद मुट्ठी मेरी खुलवाई थी जब लोगों ने, इस हथेली पे तेरा नाम लिखा था जानम, इस हथेली पे तेरा नाम लिखा था जानम. Thank you.
This is beautiful. Irshad.
Thank you.
So this is ये हमारे resident in-house शायर हैं, and of course he introduced himself. He is a trade union leader by profession, but here he is our resident शायर and very creative. I think that was beautiful, sir. Thank you very much. And yes, I think full of appreciation for Karan Saab and for ma'am also for being so candid. Um, there is a lot of appreciation from all the people who are here. There is a question for the doctor, again from Abdul Ghani sir, and he says that the financial background or the background of the individual may make a difference. In similarly placed situations, how would you deal with a person who is maybe financially challenged? Because we are not in an ideal world. He does not take anything away from Veena ma'am, but he says that certain platforms which she had may not have been available to a person who was not financially secure. Ma'am, how will you deal with this?
I'll say that the challenges that a person with finances when it comes to infertility are also not less. Rather, the mental health problems, the couple going through IVF and assisted reproductive technology related challenges that we see are much more than a person who is financially less sound, who decides in early course of life or accepts the phase that, okay, if this thing is not working or are trying into the public health settings, they accept it as a phase and adoption comes much early to them. And vis-a-vis the persons who are more educated, financially well off, their journey is far more tedious and more challenging. So, sir, I'll say that it is not about what course you are choosing for the fertility related problem. Either it is IVF or adoption. It is about coming to the terms, accepting that this is the problem, how you're going to deal with. I'll say, irrespective of finance, what troubles more is having a support system at your end. Are the people supportive of what decision you are taking? Because we have a lot of women coming to our clinics who want to opt in for adoption, but the families are not supportive. There are women who outrightly, even having finances, do not want to go through the process of IVF, but the families are not supportive. So what is more important is that how do you address that situation? What support do you get from the people around you to validate the crisis that you're going through and the decision that you are making?
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Very lucid explanation of this. Yes. We will now actually conclude. If unless there are any more questions from or comments or interjections from anyone, we will conclude. It was fantastic, actually. If there's any more questions, most welcome. I mean, it's a good opportunity to tap into the wisdom of Dr. Predna and Veena ma'am also, because we learn so much from the experiences of others. I mean, just by hearing people, and even when I've not been able to attend some of these programs on account of time constraints, I have actually gone back and heard them on YouTube. And Sejal ma'am does a fantastic job collating all our programs. So big thank you to her also. And actually one learns so much from, I think half the problem, and I stand corrected if the doctor feels otherwise, if the problem is nipped in the bud. So if you knew, there was a program which somebody did on SAD, seasonal afflictive disorder. So the answer is very simple. You sit in your balcony for some time. So I think those things, if somebody tells you in advance, you can solve it before a big problem happens. So if there are any more questions, we'll be very happy to take them. Otherwise, we'll just take the opportunity to thank Dr. Predna for her time, Veena ma'am for being so very candid. It's not easy to do so in the open, and Nick for being such a fantastic husband, because husband is also a designation, it's a job. And I think it's not complete without having Archana ma'am say something, because, she is the Jaan behind this movement, so to say. And I'm very serious. You must tell us, what you've been doing. You've been out of circulation for some time, but Archana ma'am 2.0, 3.0, whatever it is, please give us some gyan.
I think the Jan are only two, Lisa and Sejal.
No, but you are the mover. I have, in the beginning of the program, thanked all the founder members. Just thanked Sejal ma'am, Lisa ma'am, of course, does a lot of work. She could not be here today because of some very, very pressing commitments.
No, I'm here just for 5 minutes.
Okay, welcome ma'am, welcome. So, yes.
Sorry, yeah, a little bit late. Uh-huh. I'm
Sorry,
here.
मैंने देखा नहीं. So, yes.
नहीं, कोई बात
Your happy heart and happy feet and heart strong. You are an amazing dancer. And I'm so sorry, Parikshit said join, ma'am, and I thought the time was at 2. And Lisa is taking care of her mother, so I said, okay, I'll join at 2. And I just missed your conversation. I'll surely see it. But from what I could gather, about the conversation is choice with regard to parenthood, and that leading to some kind of mental health issues with you. Was that the topic?
Ma'am, the problem was that there was some problems in conceiving. There was something unfortunate which happened, and because of that, there was a lot of, brickbats, if I may, lot of unwanted comments, which created problems. And she has been strong enough and tidied over all of it, thanks to her family support. And her husband has been. He introduced himself as her husband. He's a colonel, but he introduced himself as so and so's husband.
I think since I've not watched, I would not like to comment. But the only thing I can say is that I was out of circulation because I did have, another episode of depression. So I'm again on medication and I'm trying to get out of it. I'm not fully out, but yes, I am out. So to a great extent. So these things happen in life. I think one has to move on, and one needn't shy away. One should have the courage to accept it. That because what happens is that people are wired differently. So some people, in your circumstances would react in a different way. So I guess since we are all different, our responses are all different. But to have a very sound family support is one thing which you are blessed with. So sometimes we cannot be blessed with everything. So we, as Lisa says, gratitude for whatever we've been blessed with, because sometimes I get very cynical. But we, in your journey, we are always there for you, and for each one of us who's had the courage to come out and speak, because we need to speak. It is too deep rooted a problem. We need